Madam Chair, I think as a board and a county, we should be supporting renewable energy. I think this site is very good for the use. It's kind of out of the way. It's very well buffered surrounding uses. I think it is in fairly close proximity to some schools, so there might be some educational opportunities later on down the road. And with that, I would move that the board approve the special exception request with conditions recommended by the planning commission.
And that would amend to involve just number 1 through 6 and strike number 7.
Correct.
Motion on the floor by Mr. Martin. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you all. Absolutely. I would have forgotten again. Thank you.
Okay, the next item, this is a request by Amherst County for rezoning of a portion of a parcel adjacent to Mill Creek Lake. This parcel is owned by Amherst County and is zoned A1 agriculture residential. The purpose of this request is to rezone approximately 1.2 acres of Mill Creek Lake, which is tax map parcel 51A12, containing the existing parking lot and a part of the outdoor park area from the A1 agricultural district to the P1 public lands district, as shown on the attached scale drawing. Amherst County intends to place a bathroom facility at the park, and a partial rezoning is necessary for the purpose of use and setback requirements. This also includes an amendment to the Amherst County future land use map as part of the Amherst County Comprehensive Plan 2017. We're putting bathrooms in, and this was all part of the COVID times. Mr. Thacker has done a tremendous job of trying to move quickly. But as a result, we recognized that this property was zoned agricultural. Okay, and once we recognized that, we felt like we needed to do the right thing by rezoning it from a setback perspective to meet setbacks. Well, to get to the P1 district because the P1 district doesn't require a setback, and a use perspective because we were in an agricultural district and we were putting a public bathroom facility in an agricultural facility. So staff has recommended that we rezone the property to the public lands district in the future land use map to be consistent with that request. Just so you know, at the Planning Commission public hearing, we had originally advertised rezoning all of Mill Creek Lake and all of the property that included Mill Creek Lake, which was multiple parcels, and we advertised it as such. We filled the room up that night with people that were upset. Generally, the reason people were upset was because rezoning property in Amherst to the public lands district, when it's in conjunction with a reservoir or a lake, then imposes a 350-foot setback from water's edge. We have a setback of 200 feet already from property that's on public land and when it's in relation to a lake or reservoir, but that setback is expanded to 350 feet. So the reason we shrunk it down, because our intent wasn't to change zoning to impact people on the policy of 350 feet. Our intent was to try to make it palatable for Amherst to rezone it and to do it properly, but not to necessarily impose this setback on all of the property owners of Mill Creek Lake. Now you might ask, which I did too, do we need this regulation then? If we have it, why don't we impose it? Why don't we use it? And so that was a good question that I asked myself and my staff and others. And we do have the Harris Creek, Grand Creek Reservoir, and that is zoned P1 Public Lands District. And I think this debate may be a good debate for another time. But the Harris Creek, Grand Creek Reservoir is zoned P1 Public Lands and does have the 350-foot setback from water's edge. And there are many plats in Amherst County that recognize and point out that 350-foot setback. So we have a lake that is already zoned P1, but Mill Creek and Thrashers, as we'll go over tonight, both of those are zoned agriculture. So that's why the county is recommending that we rezone a portion of a parcel to public lands district so we can accommodate these bathroom facilities. I know that's a lot of information. Do you have any questions for staff at this time?
Board members?
Thank you.
I have one question, Jeremy. We had a lot of people that meeting that night, and a lot of people that their land and property would be affected by rezoning the whole lake. There was one individual in particular that had moved back here who wanted to retire and build a house on lots that her family had cut off. They owned the land before the creek was ever there. They probably had a lot of their land taken, or, through eminent domain or however it was. But there was one lady and she was concerned. You met with her that next day? Did you reconcile?
Yes,
with
sir.
her?
We did. She was able to bring a plat in. We were able to scale off her plat, and she actually went out and marked the property. I talked to her numerous times trying to rectify her situation. She does, we believe, have a buildable spot on her land with the setbacks that are already in place. So she is, as far as I know, is in a good place and is pleased with where things are at.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? All right, now, we will now open up the public hearing for 2020-511. Anyone else here wishing to speak in favor of? Anyone wishing to speak opposed to? We will now close the public hearing for 2020-511. Board members, which pleasure?
Ma'am, I move that the board approve rezoning the property from the A1 agricultural residential district to the P1 public land district and amend the future land use map that is part of the Amherst County Comprehensive Plan from agricultural to public.
Motion on the floor by Mr. Pugh. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Pugh. All right, Mr. Bryant.
Yes, ma'am. I won't get into great detail on this. This is a similar request, but for Thrashers Lake. This is a smaller area, 0.1 acres of land that we're asking you to rezone. It's tax map parcel 49A, 29A. Again, it's a portion from the agricultural district to the public lands district. The comprehensive plan actually did support this future land use map, so we're asking you to just to approve the rezoning as supported by the future land use map in the Amherst County Comprehensive Plan.
Any questions for Mr. Bryant? All right, we will now open up the public hearing for 2020-514. Anyone here wishing to speak in favor of? Anyone wishing to speak opposed to? Seeing and hearing none, we will now close the public hearing. Board members, which pleasure?
Madam Chair, I move that the board approve rezoning the property from the A1 agricultural residential district to the P1 public lands district as supported by the future land use map and the Amherst County Comprehensive Plan.
Motion on the floor by Ms. Moore. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Thank you, Ms. Moore.
Okay, last one, and I'll cover this one in a little more detail because this is a little bit different. This is a request by Amherst County for the conditional rezoning of the Virginia Blue Ridge Railway Trail. This parcel is owned by Amherst County, which is the portion that's on the Amherst side, of course, because it's also in Nelson, which includes the Virginia Blue Ridge Railway Trail, which is zoned A1 agricultural residential district. The purpose of this request is to rezone all of tax map 42A1 from the agricultural district to the P1 public lands district. Amherst County intends to place a bathroom facility at the park at Rose's Mill, and the rezoning is necessary for the purpose of use and setback requirements. This case is a conditional rezoning, and we have a proposed voluntary proffer recommended by the Planning Commission to the Board of Supervisors. And this came out of a discussion that we had at the Planning Commission meeting. Residents were concerned about if we rezone all of the trails to P1 public lands district, we do not have a setback requirement anymore. So right now it's zoned agriculture, and we have a 25-foot setback. Generally, the trail, as we know it, is about 70 feet wide. And some deed research that I've done, it's about 70 feet wide, the width. That might be variable, so I can't tell you with 100% certainty the whole width, but the parcels I've researched, the trail is 70 feet wide. So with the 25-foot setback, we weren't able to put the bathroom facility on the property without impacting it and where the parking lot is. The public land allows us to put it on near the property line, on our side of the property. So staff recommended we rezone the entire trail for that purpose because we've met with members of the board, Virginia Blue Ridge Railway Board. They've had hopes to put gazebos and pavilions and things like that. They're structures, so they can't meet the setback of the agricultural district in all circumstances. This would alleviate that. However, we then did receive comments from the public where they had some concerns. So the voluntary proffer that the Planning Commission recommended was that no structures other than the proposed bathroom facility, which is what we're proposing tonight, shall be placed on the trail that are within 500 feet from the nearest occupied dwelling unit. I'll read that one more time. That no structures other than the proposed bathroom facility shall be placed on the trail that are within 500 feet of the nearest occupied dwelling unit. We mapped that, and we found out what that was. I'll pass this around to you for you to look at. And so what you'll see is a buffer that we placed using GIS, and there are 6 dwellings that are all near Rose's Mill trailhead that would be within that buffer. And so what that voluntary proffer would do, in effect, is it would not allow us to put any more structures, pavilions, gazebos, anything like that, within that area. Okay? So that's what that voluntary proffer, in effect, does. And the way to change that would be to come back to the Board of Supervisors to modify that, if you accepted tonight that voluntary proffer. This request also includes an amendment to the Amherst County Future Land Use Map as part of the comprehensive plan. Staff recommends that the board approve the rezoning from the A1 district to the P1 district, to amend the future land use map, and to accept the recommended voluntary proffer from the Planning Commission. Is there any questions for staff?
So Mr. Bryant, the bathroom will be built at the trailhead where the parking is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
And then if they want to build a gazebo, they can build it anywhere on the trail, just not here, is that right?
Well, they wouldn't be able to build if you accepted that voluntary proffer. And keep in mind, we've had Mr. Pugh, 4 or 5 people at that meeting for this topic.
Yes.
Does that sound right?
Yes.
That we're concerned about future structures. What the map indicates, the red dots, are where there are already existing structures. So it would mean if the county or the Virginia Blue Ridge Railway Group wanted to put a gazebo or pavilion, we would need to make sure it was 500 feet from the nearest dwelling.
So they could put it anywhere in here,
Correct.
but ring this way to do that?
Well, they would have to find that out, but by rezoning it P1, we can put it on the property line. There's no setback. The way it stands now, there's a 25-foot setback because it's zoned agriculture. The whole trail in Amherst, I'm not speaking about Nelson County, the trail in Amherst is zoned agriculture. Okay. All right.
Board members, any other questions?
Yeah, so to me, this is a little unusual. Not 100% sure about the county, but in most localities, they are exempt from their own zoning rules. I do feel like it's important for the county to follow its ordinance whenever possible. I think the issue I have with this proffer is that it's somewhat tying the county's hands for future improvements. You know, maybe we want to build another gazebo, or maybe we want to build a pavilion, or whatever. Also, I think that as the area might develop, what if somebody else builds another structure that's within 500 feet? So I think it's starting to severely limit our ability to use the trail for public purposes. So, you know, I'm not going to fall on my sword over it, but I really don't think it's an appropriate way to move forward.
And I'll just say, I'm fine with it actually, because after hearing the people that live along the trail and near the trail, and hearing of some of the things that happen along the trail from time to time, if I was a citizen that lived in a gazebo was put near my house, you know, that's more people closer to your residence, more people. I mean, there's drug use, there's things like that have taken place along the trail and different things, and it's just a way to keep that away from people's houses. I don't have, it's a walking trail anyway. There are some places to sit on it, but I don't think a gazebo would make a difference as to whether people use the trail or not. So I'm in favor of it. I have no problem.
Further questions? Thank you, Ron. All right, now we will now open up the public hearing for 2020-513. Anyone here wishing to speak in favor of? Anyone wishing to speak opposed to? Seeing and hearing none, we will now close the public hearing. Board members, what's your pleasure?
I move that the board approve the rezoning, the property from the A1 agricultural district to the P1 public lands district and the amended future land use map that is part of the Amherst County comprehensive plan from agricultural to public.
Motion on the floor by Mr. Pugh. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Pugh. Consent agenda. Is there any questions? Is there a motion to approve? So moved. Motion on the floor by Ms. Moore. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Consent agenda is approved. New business, Ms. Wilkes.
Okay, so number one is, we get money this year from the comp board for some sheriff deputy bonuses, strictly for deputies. And in order to give one to everyone in the sheriff's department that is a deputy, smart deputy, we need an additional $7,535.50 out of the general fund to be equitable in that department. That's the ask for tonight. I mean, that's what your agenda item is for. You can, obviously, you have to accept the money from the comp board. Which could be something, I know a couple of localities have turned it down because they don't have enough funds to pay everyone. Those are places like Fairfax and they have such large forces, sworn officers, so.
I have a question, Stacy. Didn't the sheriff's deputies this year, when the budget was taking place, the comp board, did the comp board not fund it? They didn't fund a raise for the sheriff's deputies this spring, did they?
Correct, no, they did not.
And we did, we picked it up and we did it right.
Yes. We did the market study and adjusted pay for recruitment issues, that kind of thing, at July 1 with your budget. This is something the comp board did based on what was going to be available, and it was part of the amendments in the special session.
Mm-hmm.
So they have allocated $500 per sworn deputy that was a sworn deputy as of December 1st.
Will they get $500 before or after tax?
Before. Yeah, it'll still get taxed. So that's the ask, is to give enough money to the sheriff's department to pay all the sworn deputies for.
Well, any further questions?
So, Madam Chair, I move that the board appropriate $16,685.75 of additional compensation board funding and $7,535.50 from the unobligated general fund balance for sheriff department's warrant officer bonus.
Motion on the floor by Ms. Moore. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion passes. Thank you, Ms. Moore. Solid waste transfer.
Okay, so we have had an increased use of the public's use of the landfill, and the manpower is continuing to acquire comp time. We just paid it out in June, I think. So we're back at about $35,000 right now in comp time again. So what we want to do is pay it out and pay overtime going forward. We have found savings within their budget. So we would like to transfer about $90,000 up to their overtime line, in order to cover current comp time and ongoing overtime that we are seeing. I know one individual is earning about 20 hours a month. So it's not something we can foresee how much it will be, but Mr. Thacker can probably answer more questions about the overtime if you would like. It just seems to be a continual problem. We've probably paid them out since I've been here at least 4 times for comp time. Large chunks.
Mr. Thacker.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
I know that you run a tight ship and it's lean, but I also know that there were certain savings that, and you had a budget. Was this unexpected to you?
No, several issues. So when the pay down occurred June 30th, I was only to 200 hours. Meaning an employee had 300 hours, it went down to 200 hours. So when it was not as though Public Works had 0 hours, July 1st, and we've accrued several hundred hours again. There are multiple issues here. One is that some of our hauling is accruing comp time, but it's still far less than we paid a third party to do it for us. Part of the contingency too of going for our own hauling was assuming that our landfill staff could get a CDL. As you know, the DMV has been closed since March. They don't offer CDLs. So unless we hire somebody, we have nobody else that can offset some of these comp time issues we're having.
I knew there'd be an explanation.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Thacker.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions?
Well, I have a question, sorry. And I asked this of Dean, is it in the best use of our finances to hire somebody versus paying out $90,000, or do we pay out $90,000? I think it'd be cheaper to hire somebody.
Let me answer a little bit. So you already have to pay the 35. It's already comp time that's earned. You're obligated to pay that. Possibly we could prove that we need another driver. We have that on the supplemental. We just haven't documented it yet with the overtime. We're hoping as we go forward, we can pull overtime from like July till we start talking about it in the spring. But I think, yeah, you'll probably want to look at that at some point. It's definitely between the comp time for just driving is not the only comp time. I mean, if you have a DEQ inspection come up a day after it's rained 3 inches, all the people have to come in and help clean up before they get here, that kind of thing. So I think, yeah, you probably could justify another person at that point.
Any further questions?
Yes, so it looks as the funding for this is coming from savings within your current budget, correct? That you've been.
Correct. When we did the first budget, we estimated and we dropped their contribution by $200,000 of savings, and we still see a substantial savings coming.
And that's awesome. I guess what concerns me is the statement that next year's budget will be a $40,000 to $50,000 line for overtime expenses to continue this practice. That's fine, but if you're saving it now within your budget, you can save it next year. So total amounts should be about the same, right?
It will not increase the budget.
Fine.
It will be, we're increasing the payroll budget.
I get that. I mean,
Okay.
you're offsetting one cost to pay for another.
Right, yeah,
as long
you
as
should not see any difference next year in the budget except for payroll.
Fine.
Maybe even less.
Well, we're gonna talk about some other things.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Thank you, Mr. Thacker.
If I may, Madam Chair, as you discern, this is just moving money from one part of one budget to the personnel part of the other budget. But we don't have authority to do that. Only you all have reserved that for yourselves. So that's why this question is here. We need to take care of it on our own.
Board members, no motion.
Madam Chair, I move the board approve the transfer of funds as presented.
Motion on the floor by Mr. Martin. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion passes. Thank you. revenue appropriation.
Can we do these together or
Yeah.
separate?
the same thing.
Okay, so the next two items are the same thing, different amounts. But the town and the Service Authority have received funding from the Department of Housing and Community Development for utility programs that I, as finance director or Amherst County, has to be their fiscal agent in order for them to receive the money. So we need the memorandum of understanding for that and a certification from us that says they're going to use the money as directed. It's the same certification basically that we did for the other CARES Act money. This is a very tight time frame for both organizations, and the sooner the better. Sarah, Ms. Carter wanted it the day she sent it to me. I said, well, we gotta get it to the board first. So that is in a nutshell what it is. I have to keep our records because it's gonna come through us, and then I'll turn around and give the money to them and make sure that they do what they're supposed to do and send back anything we don't spend.
Thank you. Any questions?
All right, I'll go ahead and make a motion. I move that the board direct the county administrator to execute the MOU and certification for the town of Amherst award of utility assistance CARES Act funding and to appropriate the revenue of $30,819.13 to be distributed to the town once received.
Motion on the floor by Mr. Pugh. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Pugh. And we got the Service Authority, right?
Yes, it's the same thing,
Okay.
different
All right,
number.
you've heard the explanation. Any questions about the Service Authority? Is there a motion?
Madam Chair, I move that the board direct the county administrator to execute the MOU and certification. Is that the wrong one?
It's
I
coming
don't
out.
know, I don't
I
have
think
that.
it's copy and paste.
26,915.
Did I copy and paste wrong?
It just says it's County Amherst Board, but I guess it's through.
It is, I'm sorry, that was copy and paste. Quick,
So this
Quick
is for the
moving.
Service Authority, correct?
it's supposed to be the Service Authority, I apologize.
I'm gonna see if I can make the motion. Move the board direct the county administrator to execute the MOU and certification for the Amherst County Service Authority award of utility assistance CARES Act funding and to appropriate the revenue $26,915.07 to be distributed to the Amherst County Service Authority once received.
Motion on the floor by Mr. Martin. All in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Martin. Thank you, Ms. Phillips. County Administrator's report.
Yes, ma'am. The first item is simply to put the board on notice that Mr. Banton, Chairman of the Board of Zoning Appeals, has tendered his resignation, and that we are advertising for a replacement for him. Just to put you all on notice in case you've got any friends, neighbors, colleagues, or impressive neighbors that you would like to serve in that capacity, to send them our way. The next item is a revision to the HR regulation that allows us basically to pay for comp time and write that into the regulation itself. Ms. Warner's here to answer any questions if you have any about that.
Board members, any questions?
So how is that going to affect your overall operating budget?
It does not change the budget. It just gives us the authority to pay that comp time rather than allow it to accumulate or give it as actual time off. As you heard previously, a lot of this is driven by the landfill staff because we really can't afford to let them take their comp time. We need to pay them and keep them at work.
So comp time is paid straight, whatever the hourly rate is. Overtime is gonna be time and a half. Is that gonna increase our finances?
Comp time is earned the same way that overtime is, so the hours between 37.5 and 40 are straight time, and any hours over 40, they earn time and a half comp time. Federal law requires us to pay it out at the 240-hour mark, so we've been doing that, but we have no language in the HR manual about paying comp time, and this would give the county administrator the ability to authorize it on a case-by-case or department-by-department basis if there was some pressing county business need. It won't change the budget at all, because in order for us to increase that salary line item, we have to come back to you to do that. So it would only be if there's already salary money available in that department's budget and there's a pressing county business need.
Any further questions? Your motion?
I move that the board accept the FY 2021 county administrator's change to CAC-3 as proposed.
Motion on the floor by Mr. Pugh. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Pugh.
The reason that came to the board, Madam Chair, is because whenever I make any changes to the HR regulation, they cannot take effect until they're brought to your attention. So that's why they come to you. And it gives you the opportunity to question it and tell me I can't do it or otherwise.
All right, county attorney's report.
If I may, ma'am, I do have one other topic I want to bring to the board's attention before I give up my report time. And that is with regard to the regular agenda item, liaison and committee reports. As you all know, in the coming year, we are asking the chairs of the boards, committees, commissions, councils that you all appoint to come and give a report and establish an annual report that they report on how well they're achieving the objectives of their organization. This agenda item was also intended for liaisons to report, such that, you know, the liaison to the Emergency Services Council, the liaison to the Parks and Rec Board, the liaison to the Department of Social Services would also give a report, so as to keep the other board members informed as to what's happening in those other bodies. That's why there is a liaison. And so unless the board objects, what I would like to do is, as we keep track of these other bodies that meet, like when the Planning Commission meets, we will know to put on the agenda a report from the Planning Commission liaison. And then Mr. Pugh would report on whatever interesting thing happened, or to let the board know this is coming our way, or here are the tough issues that we had to deal with. And so that way you all are kept informed from each other on what's going on. And of course, the public needs to hear what's going on in all these other bodies. I believe that this will help in your oversight of those bodies, especially as we try to increase communication from them all and unify us as an entire governmental organization. It just takes more communication than we've had in the past. Is there any objection to putting you on the spot like that? I mean, you could easily just say nothing unusual happened, but I think everybody needs to know that you had been at work and had served in your liaison capacity.
Mr. Pugh, this is probably going to impact you as much as anybody. Are you going?
Yeah, well, yeah, it's easy. I mean, a lot of it goes right before you with the Planning Commission anyway. The social services, a lot of that, some of that we can't talk about. I mean, a lot of it's conducted in closed session. So, but if there is anything available, anything worthy of talking about, sure. But it's not, you know, it's not.
My intention is simply to give you all the opportunity to take the floor and let the others know what you're doing.
Like, for instance, this Thursday, I'll have two meetings. I'll have a meeting in the morning, and then I'll have a planning commission meeting in the evening. So I won't see you all for another couple of weeks. So we'll see. I guess I can just pull up the agenda and see what we talked about and go from there.
Is everybody okay with that approach?
Yeah, I like that. And then I know we talked about at our retreat, getting committee chairs and so forth to come and speak. That would be during the liaison committee reports as well.
Well, we would probably schedule that like a spotlight, you know, under departmental reports.
Okay.
But yes, but they're separate parts of the meeting. And Rachel's in the process of scheduling them all now. We're receiving their input. If there's any particular organization that you want to hear from the chair, or you want to have the chair sit in front of you for some reason, please let me know, and we'll move them right up in the schedule. That's all I have, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers. County Attorney?
Yes, Madam Chair. First of all, my name is Mark Popovich. As you heard from Mr. Lockaby at your last meeting, he is attempting to get his life back in organizational mode with 2 young daughters, and he was looking to see if I would be willing to step in on daily operations here in Amherst in his stead, which obviously I'm more than willing to do. He had every intention of being here this evening to formally introduce me to you, although I've been here before, you've seen my face. But he apparently has come down with some form of sickness. He has gone and got tested. I do not know the results yet, so I can't speak to that. But he did sound rather bad on the telephone when I talked to him earlier today. Having said that, in speaking with the county administrator, we were talking about the Conflicts of Interest Act and the financial disclosure requirements that all boards of supervisors, city councils, and town councils are required to provide under Virginia law. And it became apparent that there might be a situation here in Amherst where we need to make some clarification by ordinance. Specifically, and I want to just point this out, under section 2.231.15 of the Code of Virginia, board members of the supervisors, executive director, and members of IDAs and EDAs must file the long form, which you know what I'm talking about, the very long, detailed questionnaire that talks about everything under the sun that you may have an interest in. But it then has this catch-all phrase at the end that says persons holding a position of trust if the governing body has adopted an ordinance. Now, having said that, I look through your ordinances, I don't see anything in there that indicates that any other particular body here in Amherst or any particular person is required to file that long form. But what I've learned from Mr. Rogers is that the authority members have been filing that long form, as has the director there, and as your county administrator, he's been filing the long form as well. Now, if you want that process to continue, my recommendation is we develop some ordinance language that we can then have in front of you to formally adopt and then comply with the requirements of the state code. Interestingly enough, in going through some of the charters for your other organizations, those charters indicate that those folks, in some instances, have to, and in others they don't. It's an interesting mix. File the short form, the standard financial disclosure. So the question that occurred to me was, is this something that maybe the board would want to address in an overall ordinance to kind of put everything in one spot where everybody knows where to look and understand which form they're supposed to file and which one they're not? The financial disclosure form, statutory language doesn't specifically say anything about there being an ordinance requirement, but it does say designated by the governing body. So you could parse that in 2 ways. You could say that, well, the charter is designation enough.
Because it's approved by them.
Because it's approved by you. Or you could say, let's just incorporate everybody and all of their requirements into one ordinance that is, quote unquote, the official word and is located in one spot in your ordinances. I leave that up to you, but for purposes of at least addressing the requirement for service authority and its director and your county administrator, you would have to have an ordinance. Otherwise, they do not have to file because there is no ordinance on language currently out there.
So can you change it to where we only have to file the short form?
You know. Unfortunately, the statute says you have to file the long form. But so I just want to point that out, that if you still want those individuals, county administrator and the service authority folks, to have to do the long form, then we will need to adopt an ordinance. If you want to add anybody else to the requirement of having to file a long form, this would be the time to do it in. Otherwise, you can kind of, it's really up to you to either leave the other ones alone, don't necessarily worry about them so much, and leave it in the charter provisions and all of that. But I just wanted to focus your attention on the ordinance requirement. and that particular law enforcement.
How much strong feels from one of the other board members? How about y'all?
Who again would be the people that would have to follow along?
Well, if you want to follow tradition of what you have traditionally done here, there would be members of the service authority. If you, as members of the board, have already filed the long form, you wouldn't have to do it again.
Right.
As members of service authority. But members of the service authority, the director and the county administrator. Now, it's interesting to point out that some other localities have gone farther over the edge and required all of their directors to file law forms. It's kind of a piecemeal approach throughout the Commonwealth. So it's really whatever you're kind of comfortable with in terms of providing transparency to the public.
And to me, Madam Chair, that's the key is transparency. So I would suggest that would be a good thing to do. So, I'll follow the same point. Well, the service authority is in a position of dealing with a lot of different things, where they may or may not be influenced, and well as our county administrator. So I would suggest call the transparency, we should do.
For the service authority and for the people,
County administrator and our economic development director is involved.
If you want to have the economic development director, yes, I would suggest you have to do
And
that.
like what happened in some other localities, yes.
EDA board fill long form out too?
The EDA, well, you're right.
I think it would be
I take that back.
a good
The EDA already is required and their executive director is already required. So that's covered in the statute in terms of just already being required. So really what we're only talking about is members of the service authority that are not members of the board, because you've already filed yours, you don't have to do it twice.
Well, right, and if since we've appointed the two citizen members to the board, I think it would be beneficial to have them balancing the board. But otherwise, if we kept it the same way, it would really be a problem.
And then so also the county administrator, what about the director for the service?
Absolutely. Yes. I thought that he was already filing.
He is, and I just wanted to be clear, if you're trying to just capture what has been traditionally done, then he's included in that group. So-
Does the finance director, do you have to file?
I mean, you could make a case the planning commission could, but they have to file, maybe that's the short, they have to file something, I believe.
The planning commission only has to file the real estate disclosure.
Okay, well, that's fine. I don't.
I mean, and let me double check here real quick. And you have, through their charter, required them to file the short form. So they do have to file something.
I found Mr. Martin's, report, where he just made a suggestion.
I think it was consensus on the board that that's what we would like to draft.
Right. I would draft something and get it in.
Anything else, Mr. Popovich?
No, ma'am, except wishing you all happy holidays.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, board members, liaisons, committee reports, you can see those. Ms. Moore, you want to talk to us, give us an update on CARES Act? Ms. Moore? Oh, I'm sorry. Excuse me.
You can go ahead if you want.
Not as skilled as you.
Got to see more zeros, Ms. Wells, that's a good thing.
All right, yes, there are 4 zeros. I talked to the schools today, theirs will be spent. She was bringing it over this afternoon. The miscellaneous line is pretty much spent, I just haven't got all the invoices in. Public safety, we're working on some stuff with, their stretcher didn't cost as much, so we're going ahead and getting like a couple trailers for like the Zoom tent thing that we got, so they can transport it. But I feel confident all of this will be spent either on things that are currently in the works, or we will use that savings feature with the public safety and the deputy salaries like we did for June 30th. I will tell you that Secretary Lane sent down his guidance, and we have to have all of our payments out and paid for by the 15th of January. So that 90 days just got shortened to about 15.
And who told us that?
Secretary Lane, the Secretary of Finance for the governor.
So that was literally tells us one thing and then tells us something else.
Every single one of them keeps changing their minds about stuff. We have yet to get guidance from the federal government on what to do with the CARES Act on our audit, so we're having to split it in half. We're doing the financials, and then we'll do the single audit later. So we can't get any guidance on what we're supposed to do with it. So they can't audit it yet. So yeah, they keep changing their minds every time you turn around. It's just the way it moves, I think. But yeah, he does want it all spent by the 15th of January, so that if we haven't spent it, we have to send in the money back by the end of January, which is the same guidelines for the 2 MOUs. I literally, like, they're gonna get their money, they have to apply it to the accounts, and if they don't use all the money, it has to go back to the state by the 29th of January. They have like 6 weeks to take it, less than 6 weeks. So.
Now, meanwhile, as I understand it, all of the various stimulus bills that are battling their way through Congress, they all contain in their ranks a provision that extends the deadlines past 30 December.
Yeah, they keep changing, but
Which is significant for us, because the fiber line coming up 60 East from Gladstone has hit rock. And so they are no longer boring. There's not enough time now to get permits from AEP to hang on poles. Those crews have been reassigned to the other areas to continue to put fiber in. They're already they'll have customers signed up before the end of the year on each of these. But with regard to that Gladstone route, we need that deadline extended so that we can continue to use that money for that and not have to give it back for that portion.
So, anybody I got a question since you're up here, but it's not about the
Absolutely.
CARES Act funding. Does anybody have any more questions? My question, when you look back at projections versus revenue streams, we're hit with a whole new, from the governor, some things that are in place now that weren't recently. When you look back, I think I might be right, but the sales tax revenue, you were projecting it to be down 15% the first quarter, and then 10% the next, and then it'll be a full recovery for our last 2 quarters.
we recovered before June.
So, and then, I know, but I mean,
Yeah,
I'm saying now, what does it look like now? You said it's completely recovered, there's not gonna be a hit at all. And then your meals tax, there was a 40% reduction, now a 20% reduction, when you had a full recovery for the last 2 quarters.
right. So it's not a nice.
That's not, I'd be surprised if that holds up, because people aren't eating out nearly as much.
I have not looked at the meals tax yet for the second quarter. It was for the first quarter, it was holding true. It was dead on what we had anticipated. Nothing seemed to have changed. Like I said, at the meeting for that, they might not be eating at sitting down, but they're eating somewhere because we're getting the meals tax. We are. So now if it changes because of the new order, I don't know, because that just came into play. But I will look at it 1st of January for the second quarter. And when you guys get the O&M budget, we'll have the 6 months in there for that when we get to the revenue, so we'll be able to look at it a little closer.
From my own perspective, I haven't really been eating out. I've been cooking at home. I don't eat out.
The only time we eat out is when I'm too tired
And
to cook.
a lot of people I've talked to,
School.
a a lot of people aren't eating out, you know, they don't.
Yeah, they just don't. Yeah, you're right.
They don't
I don't
really-
know where it's coming from,
So,
honestly.
you know, that was my concern, that maybe the meals tax, we will take a hit on that, but you're saying that right now, no.
No, but, meals tax lags by a month, so we are just starting to see November stuff come in December.
All right, will you keep us abreast of the
And
situation?
sales tax is 2 months behind, so we won't see that for a while, whether this is effective or not.
All right, well, good, well, hopefully it stays that way, I was just kind of
I'm
concerned.
hopeful.
All right,
Thank you, Ms. Wilks, appreciate it. All right, now we'll open the meeting back up for citizen comment. Anyone here wishing to speak? Seeing and hearing none, we'll close citizen comment to move on to matters for the board. Mr. Martin?
Yes, ma'am. Two things. One, I'd like to continue to keep the intersection of 151 and 29 in front of the board and the county administrator. There was an email this week with VDOT and Mr. Rogers, and it doesn't seem like they've really had time to get out there and look at it, and they're probably not really knowing what anything else that they could do. To me, I'm not sure how you can say that until they go out there and actually start doing things. So, Mr. Rogers, I'd like you to stay on VDOT. And secondly, I think it was very great that through the funding from the state that we could give the sheriff's deputies a bonus. If you could look into for some future board meeting what that would take to give the rest of our county employees, or at least public safety employees, the same bonus cost of that for a board discussion, that would be nice. Don't want to talk about it tonight.
Okay.
Just,
I did send that
I know you
information.
did.
Okay, so we'll schedule that.
And what overall effect that would have on our budget if we did this.
it would just be a bonus, right? Yeah.
But you got to pay for it, right?
Mm-hmm. But it would be
It's
not.
a one-time, yes.
Mr. Hughes?
I have nothing.
Ms. Moore?
I don't know.
I don't have anything other than to thank my fellow board members for allowing me to be chair for this year 2020. But a heck of a year to do it. But it has been my pleasure. And I think that we've got probably one of the best boards that I've had pleasure to serve on, so thank you all very, very much. Is there a motion to adjourn? So moved. Motion on the floor by Ms. Moore, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Meeting is adjourned.
Okay.
No, I want to stay.
That's what the coaches always say every year.